Carlos, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be
as we already
here.
started talking, yeah, slight delay, so I'll try and be not talking too fast. But tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you come across knowing about Palestine and what made you advocate for Palestine?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm an immigrant and from Guatemala, and my family came here under unfortunate circumstances. We were survivors of the Mayan genocide. When I came here, I was about 10 years old, but I was already uh, more or less conscious of what was happening politically as a child, survivor of the genocide, as I'm sure happens in many areas of the world, including of course Palestine.
Mm.
People grow up really fast when they are forced into these situations. I mean, I've had opportunities to see videos of little kids in Palestine uh, arguing politics more concisely and precisely than many adults here in the US. So,
Wow.
anyhow, um,
Yeah.
so at the time, I had no idea about Palestine. I mean, I knew that Palestine existed, and that is about it. I knew nothing about what was happening there in terms of politics, in terms of you know, Israel and genocide and Nakba or anything else. So,
Hmm.
fast forward to uh, my life as a college student in the early '80s, and things changed a little bit. And when I say college, it's basically technical school. But That's kind of when I started becoming politically aware beyond my immediate circumstances,
Mm.
and and it was in school that I got to meet a Palestinian uh, who was very cautious about speaking. I didn't understand why until he actually started to open up, and he told me what was happening in his country, and. That was sort of the beginning of my awakening, but it all stayed in the back of my head. I did not, unfortunately, participate in anything other than um, some of the issues that I was interested in at the time, mainly the civil wars in Central America. You have to keep in mind that in Guatemala, where I was born, the genocide lasted from 1965 approximately until 1985 or so. Uh, and in many instances, it's actually still ongoing, but in a very low level. So so I was interested in that. Then I
Mm.
became interested a little bit in some issues having to do with women's rights, abortion rights, the Equal Rights Amendment, and things like that. And then and then I had always been interested in things that happened in Central America, such as that outside of Guatemala, such as the Nicaraguan Revolution, which I followed very, very closely. At the same time as that revolution was going on, there was another revolution happening in Iran. Um, and so I became very interested in that as well. I knew that things by that time I knew that things were not the way that they were presented here in the media. I had become, sufficiently media savvy to know that you don't believe uh, everything that is said, and you only believe part of what is shown to you. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's
I think the whole world is waking up to that very slowly.
yeah, exactly. So So I at as somewhere around that time I befriended a guy from Iran who was very different than most of the other people that I had met from Iran, who had come to the U.S. Um, on student visas, and who were, paid, whose existence here was paid by daddy's money, and daddy made his money off of businesses related to the Shah of Iran. We're talking about the elite of Iranian society back at that time, and so not everyone, but many people, and perhaps most of the Iranians that I met at that time were like that. This guy in particular was different. Um, he had been a member of the Today uh, party in Iran. He was a communist, a very hardcore communist, and so he opened my eyes to a lot of stuff that was happening in the Middle East, things that were happening in Palestine, in Lebanon, in Iran, in Syria, Libya, etc. So that was sort of a second awakening for me. But things still stayed, in relation to Palestine. They stayed sort of in the back. But it was at that time that I started to become aware that the bloodiest years of the Mayan genocide happened when uh, Jimmy Carter, then president, of course, said that he was not going to continue providing funding for the Guatemalan military,
Mm.
who was, a very vicious military. In a government that was essentially a dictatorship or a series of dictatorships.
Mm.
So, so, but Jimmy Carter was, not this, not just this humble peanut farmer from Georgia who was also a pastor, a man of the cloth.
Mm.
He was a very savvy politician, and so behind the scenes, he created some policies that allowed uh, a continuing to fund that genocide through Israel, and so uh, Israel started to fund the military in Guatemala in proportion to the funding that was being cut by the U.S. Israel was filling in the
Mm.
gap, of course, with full knowledge and consent of the U.S. and
Mhm.
probably encouragement as well. And so suddenly the Guatemalan army had uh, uh, Israeli rifles, Israeli armored personnel carriers,
Mm.
airplanes, and more importantly, advisors. So we got the Mossad, um, and the IDF, who were of course uh, the most highly trained genociders that the world has known, and so they taught the Guatemalan government how to conduct a proper genocide. And the Guatemalan government was a rookie at doing those sorts of things. And so, as a consequence, uh, during the Guatemalan genocide, we had over 200,000 documented deaths. Many thousands disappeared. Um, Something like 150,000 forcibly exiled into Mexico across the border. Um, we had over 1 million people internally displaced. We had over 600 villages completely erased off the map, trees and crops burnt to the ground, everything bulldozed flat, you know. And so all of this stuff is exactly what we see happening in Gaza. And so the link that I should have formed at an earlier age began to coalesce at that time, and I began to see what was happening. So, but again, I had other interests. I got married. Oh, well, no, actually, before that, I went to Nicaragua.
Hmm.
Nicaragua at the time was being attacked by the Contra army, the essentially being attacked by the U.S. Through a proxy army funded by drugs and gun running that the U.S. was doing. Making deals with cocaine dealers and bringing drugs into South Central LA, and trading guns with Iran, sort of through backdoor deals. And I mean, it was a bloody mess, literally. And so I went to Nicaragua to offer my services in whatever way they could. So I ended up being in Nicaragua for about 14 months. Started out as being a couple of weeks, but one thing led to another, and as a result of that, I ended up being a family man, and got caught up raising three kids. So
Hmm.
um,
That's a lot, man.
that's a
Raising
lot,
kids is a
but
lot. That's a
but
24-hour job.
yeah, and but still, everything, all the injustices that are happening in the world remained, even while I was changing diapers. And you know so now an older person, and when two significant events happened, in the last couple of decades. One was 9/11, and at that time
Mhm.
I wrote an article called "The Chickens Come Home to Roost," and I talked about how the U.S. had directly caused the attack that happened in the Twin Towers. And this is
Mm.
this is of course before I understood this to be, part of a broader conspiracy. And I don't want to get into that at this point, but that's what I wrote.
I
I
think
said,
I already have on my channel. You're covered.
yeah. So so we do bad things, or our government does bad things, and
Mhm.
guess what? They rebound, and it's a boomerang effect. And so that was a significant thing, and that caused a lot of friction with a lot of my friends who were very patriotic Americans, and and for them, Arabs were all bad, Islam was all bad, et cetera, et cetera. All the stuff that
Oh,
that
yeah,
we
my.
continue to see to this day. And so then of course, um, you know, Hamas, as the leaders of the resistance, decides to, hey, we've had enough. Let's you know hurt Israel. And so that act of resistance uh, uh, woke me up, and I said, I can't, I can't. There's nothing else happening in the world that is as important as this, because
Mm.
this is going to
And what was this?
define.
This moment where their
So,
actions.
so this was, of course, in October
Oh, okay.
2023.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So to me, it basically became what I thought, and many people think is, a defining moment in Western civilization. If we allow this genocide to happen, you know, we're going to allow basically anything to happen. We're going to allow
Yeah.
fascism to happen. And and so um, then I started to talk to my friends and acquaintances about what had happened in my country, and what Israel's involvement in it was. And I felt a kinship towards Palestinians that I think many people didn't quite feel. I mean, one thing is to feel
Mm.
empathy. Another is to know what it's like to see your dad come home, uh, bloody and afraid, and so much so that he feels that he has to leave the country for the sake of his family, and so as a little kid, I had to help nurse my dad back to health when he came home. When the Guatemalan government attempted to decapitate my dad, and the decapitation attempt was unsuccessful, but still,
Was that
he.
something they were doing to a lot of people, shutting them down, or
Well, yeah,
because that
yeah.
sounded like a lot going on right there?
Yeah. Like I said, 200,000 people dead. And my dad identified as an indigenous person. His first language was Quechua, which is a Mayan language.
Mm.
Uh, he didn't learn to speak Spanish until maybe he was maybe 10 years old, when his mom uh, decided to move the family to Guatemala City, to the big city. So,
Mm.
anyhow, um, I really felt like what was happening in Palestine, especially at the beginning. I felt, hey, this is exactly what happened in my home country, and
Mm.
it's being done exactly by the same people.
You're able to wake up to that because some Americans are confused, thinking that people are just getting caught in the crossfire. They didn't register it was a genocide, you know?
Right?
So when they see all these, especially how it's advertised here with news media, you have America being advertised as like people caught in the crossfire or they're human shields.
Yeah,
But you saw that same footage and you were able to decipher what was going on.
yeah.
What do you think that difference is?
Well, there's Americans, and I hesitate to use Americans because I was an American before coming to the U.S. You know,
Mm.
America is a huge continent composed
Yeah,
of
yeah. Or like
35 different
the
countries. But
USA
yeah,
specifically. Yeah, because
yeah,
America,
yeah,
Canada,
yeah.
Brazil. I got you.
So we have the distinction of not having had a war fought on our territory. We've
Mm.
never felt what it's like to get bombed. I mean, if you talk to somebody in Dresden,
Mhm.
Germany, which I have, they know exactly what it means to get bombed. They still remember the horrors of war. People in London, people in Syria, people in Lebanon, everywhere in the world just about has experienced war in their own country. We haven't. And people still have the gall to tell me, "Oh yeah, but the Japanese invaded us, leading us into World War II." And I go, "No, they did not. The Japanese invaded Hawaii, which did not become a state until 1959, uh, which was way after World War II was over. They invaded Hawaii. They didn't invade the U.S."
Isn't that funny how that's advertised now with all the Hollywood movies of Pearl Harbor and such that it's
Sure.
like, oh, they hit us first. It's
Right.
like kind of rewriting history to get people accustomed to something that wasn't accurate and then
Right.
believe it hidden around all these dramatic events that did happen.
Yeah, we were the
Mm,
colonizers. The
people forget that.
Japan hit, who was also a colonizer. One
Mhm.
colonizer hit another colonizer,
Yeah.
and it hit their colony, not the colonizer's territory. I mean, it wasn't like the Japanese invaded Long Beach, California.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, we don't know what it's like from a we don't have that kind of memory, but in
Yeah,
addition to
us
that,
American USA's
yeah,
American.
in addition to that, that is the U.S. Saying we as the country of which I am now a citizen,
Yeah, US,
uh,
that's us, bro.
are the most warring nation in world history, and we have a military that is unequaled in it's greater than I think all the other armies put together. Um,
Yeah.
and so and then we have, which we as U.S. citizens don't really understand. We don't we because we don't want to understand that this country, uh, the land of the free, we don't have really free media. Free as in free of censorship. We have a very controlled media. Actually, when I was living in Nicaragua, I had an opportunity of meeting a very respected U.S. journalist who, at that time, was working for a public radio station. Her name was Koki Roberts, and had an opportunity to meet her. And I said, Koki, you know, um, why is it that uh, this carnage that we are seeing here in Nicaragua, that you're witnessing, that I'm witnessing, isn't heard of in the U.S.
Mm.
Except for you know a few radio stations like KPFK and I think places like that, or what passes for left wing media, which of course was very very tiny. And she said, "Well, look, Carlos, it's real simple." And she said, "Pay attention carefully to what I'm going to tell you. The business of media is primarily business. Uh, the business of media. Media in the US is a business. Everything,
Mhm.
almost all media in the US is business." And so she said, "This is why if a paper that I'm working with uh, um, uh, uncovers a story about how Johnson and Johnson is poisoning women through their women's hygiene products,
Mhm.
we're going to be very careful about how we're going to portray that, because Johnson and Johnson happens to be one of our major advertisers, or
Mhm.
or cigarettes. We're going to be very careful about how we portray cigarettes and smoking and cancer, etc., or secondhand smoke,
Or
because
even alcohol and all that, you'll see them
yeah,
sponsor
it's
some popular things, you know?
exactly the U.S. Armed Forces are major advertisers. All the corporations are major
Mhm.
advertisers, and the and then, well, what about our politicians? Why don't our politicians do that? Well, you look at politicians, like here in Long Beach, one of our major politicians is our former mayor, who is now Congressman Robert Garcia. You
Mm.
know, and you look at his history of political contributions. I mean, he passes. He's gay. He's an immigrant. He's a young person, relatively, but um, and he's like a progressive Democrat. That is on paper. But if you look at the things he does, they're completely the opposite. A progressive Democrat will usually oppose, for example, offshore oil drilling or oil drilling in sensitive coastal wetlands. But
Mm.
Robert did not. He supported them. Uh, a progressive Democrat will usually not uh, um, uh, fall into the trap of being anti-immigrant, especially an immigrant like Robert
Mm.
Garcia. But he built cages for children separated at the border by both Trump and Biden, and he basically converted our convention center into a detention center for those children. Uh, and he did all sorts. And of course he um, right after October 23, he immediately said, we stand with Israel. Uh, and he repeated Israel's justification for the genocide by saying Israel has a right to defend itself, which of
Wow.
course is contrary to international law.
Because they're
But
the
he repeated
occupier.
that, and then, but if then you start looking at why is he saying all these things? He's supposed to be this progressive, Democrat. Well, because he's funded primarily by APAC.
There it
APAC
is.
APAC provided 4 times more funding than the next, you know, 5 or 6 major contributors towards his campaign, which were all like, you know, uh, uh, luxury housing developers and the police and etc. So he had all these like really nasty people contributing to his campaign, but the major by you know uh, a factor of many times was of course APAC. So no wonder, so everybody is bought. The media is bought. These politicians are bought, uh, and people are just not aware, or they don't want to be aware. When I confront people and start explaining to them with receipts why it is that we support who we support, their jaw drops, and they can't believe it. They go, no, 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 that's impossible.
There's
It's
that
like
denial part that
it
trips
is.
me out
It's
because I've had
it's
those
denial.
conversations
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. It's like telling somebody, it's like telling a 5-year-old, I'm sorry, kiddo, Santa Claus doesn't exist. And the kid just like throws himself to the ground and starts kicking and screaming. And or unicorns don't exist or whatever. People just don't. They have this idea in their mind, and
Hmm.
especially adults. My people who are my age, who have grown up with this idea of the US as being, a holy place protected by God, in God we trust, etc.
Hmm.
you know Sorry, my dog's here.
No, he was
And
agreeing with you.
I'm sorry.
Your dog was agreeing with you.
Yeah. And so um the difference is, and the part that I find really exciting is that, you know while my generation boomers are all thoroughly brainwashed, not all, but the vast majority of us are, um, young people are like, oh man, it's just so fucking exciting, to go to a protest, and somebody will see me with my signs and my banners and my t-shirts that say fuck ice, and all sorts of stuff, and they'll agree with me, and whereas the boomers my age will sort of distance themselves from me, and if somebody
Hmm.
asks me, I say, well, I'm a socialist. And the kids, I'll say, oh yeah, me too, or yeah, I'm kind of studying that. And they're not only are they not um uh, um not only do they not reject that idea, they accept it, and they own it, and it's incredible the number of people that I have found that do not believe in this duopoly in which we live, this fantasy that the Republicans and the Democrats are, so diametrically opposed, because they're not,
So I have a
ultimately.
question
Yeah.
because I'm not a socialist. So my question is socialism against capitalism or is socialism
Yes.
against democracy? And what's the difference of being?
Socialism is
What's the difference of being against capitalism? Because some Americans think socialism is against democracy, or do you think
Yeah.
democracy and
No,
capitalism are
well,
same?
that's
Have
because
at it.
that's the idea that has been imprinted in people's minds. Socialism means that, yeah, you oppose democracy and that you eat babies for breakfast.
Oh my gosh,
Uh,
no, that's our administration. But go on.
well, but socialism just means that um, if you bust your ass working in a factory, you should own that factory and the profits from that factory.
Like a
Yeah.
percentage and stuff, right?
Um, yeah, like we create wealth through our labor. Why is it that we don't get to share that wealth? In fact, it's been getting worse uh, continuously for the last, maybe 60 years. The difference between what a CEO makes versus what a worker makes has been increasing. I think it's like now it's like over 400 times or something like that. You know, uh,
Mm.
people who, like in my city, Long Beach, uh, a somebody who makes the minimum wage that we make is has to work 2.5 jobs to be able to rent an apartment. Not to mention to be able
Mm.
to afford food and transportation and all that kind of stuff. When I was growing up, my dad, who was a common laborer, um, and my mom, who was a housekeeper, were able to provide for a family that included 5 children, and uh, and they were able to purchase a home. They were able to have that to create that generational wealth that allowed the rest of their family, us siblings, to be able to progress and to get to where we are.
Mm.
That is an impossible goal these days. You have a housekeeper and a regular laborer. They're not even going to be able to afford an apartment to rent, let alone a house. You know, and granted, we had to tighten our belt. Like I didn't. I skipped high school altogether. Um, I because I had to work as the oldest child. I had to help my parents. Feed the rest of the family. Uh, and with my brothers, we sort of worked out a deal. Okay, you guys go to school first and then I'll go, and we sort of did that sort of cooperation among us, and we were able to succeed. Uh Myself and my brothers are all professionals. My dad didn't make it past the third grade in elementary school, but he
Mm.
understood the value of education and the value of hard work, but it wasn't through simply because we didn't pull ourselves up by our bootstraps.
Mm.
That's not what got us to where we are. The fact is that in those times, workers were more protected by unions. There were, a higher percentage of the workers um, made union wages, which allowed uh, people to live a better life. But the unions have been under constant attack by both the Democrat Party and the Republican Party, uh, such that we have a very low percentage of unionized workers. Consequently, that has driven wages way down for everybody. And I mean, how long has it been since the federal minimum wage was raised? Like 15 years or something like that. You know,
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
been a
it's
while.
just like fucking incredible. So, um, this idea that people can pull themselves up by their bootstraps is a farce. I mean, there's a little bit of pulling yourself up. There's a little bit of hard work there, but it's mostly because as a consequence of our two parties, or rather our duopoly, constantly squashing down the workers. I mean, when the railroad workers went on strike, when Biden was in power, he smashed them. You know, uh, when the air traffic controllers went on strike during the Reagan years, he just, you know, these are professionals who made six-figure salaries, and they all owned you know homes and vacation homes. They all literally got put in chains and taken away to federal prison. So everyone is getting hurt by the politics of the Democrats and the Republicans with regards to the workers. Here in Long Beach, we have the Port of Long Beach, which is one of the major ports in the U.S., and the parties, with collaboration of a bureaucratic union, anti-worker union, if you can imagine that, are pushing for automation, which means more workers are getting the boot, and creating unsafe situations at the port, and of course driving down wages, and making it more difficult for people to be able to survive, let alone thrive. So um, I probably
So
sort
how
of.
would that no? So how would that be different under a socialist government?
Well,
Because we're talking about the difference.
under
Yeah.
socialism, uh, uh, basically the entire workplace gets run by the unions. There's no boss. There's no capitalist boss.
Hmm.
If you look at, I mean, any corporation, how much time does you know well, first we have to recognize that most of the wealth that these people have is inherited wealth. It's not that they work their ass off to get to where they are. That's kind of a fallacy, again, put forth um, by the U.S. media and movies and whatnot. uh, Most of that 1% that controls the vast majority of the wealth in the U.S. uh, inherited that wealth through from their parents, or through
Mm.
or through marriage.
Yeah, because we see
These
a lot in big places, the son of, the daughter of,
Right,
you know?
right, exactly. And but these people inherit, this wealth that allows them to create even more wealth. And do they actually participate in the actual work that is happening in those factories? I mean, maybe some do a little bit, but I mean, you have people like Elon Musk. Is he an engineer? No.
No,
I
it's
mean, he
most
got
likely they focus more on expanding. As far as the root work of making the business, that's whoever was before them, or before them, you
yeah,
know?
and
Kind of like
Elon Musk.
ambassadors to what already has been, all the hard work that has already been done. Sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
and all the hard work that is being done to create, to invent and create products like, the electric vehicles like Tesla and SpaceX and all of that. All that work is being done by somebody else, and that somebody else is not reaping those profits. Those profits go to Elon Musk. Same thing with any other corporation that you can mention. So. Uh, and do socialists believe in democracy? Yes, absolutely. But what does that democracy include? It doesn't include that 1%, because they've clearly
Mm,
proven that they are, against democracy. Uh,
mm,
it's democracy of the workers. It's democracy of the ones that are actually, you know, harvesting the food that we eat, creating the vehicles that we drive, building the houses we inhabit. You know, if you produce, then the power belongs to you.
mm.
You should have no power simply because you inherited daddy's money. So that's the difference.
So when you see a lot of people who are like-minded like you, and also knowing about Palestine, um, uh, I used to think it was like, because for a while before I started, before Nakba 2, I was hearing a lot of criticism of the youth. Like, they're weak, they're emotional, they don't have the cojones of the good old days or whatever. And like, they're not strong enough to carry on the future. Like, there was a worry about that. Yet, since Nakba 2 started, and I've seen all these brave kids in the know in what the previous generation has been in denial of or ignorant of proudly,
Yeah,
uh, I see that the kids are actually stronger going forward. And I feel
yeah,
like it's the older generation holding the whole country back from
yeah,
doing the right thing and
yeah,
progressing. That
yeah,
kids are in the know of
absolutely.
what's going on in the world, what's going on in government, what to focus on to actually make things better. It's like, if anything, all these protesting I've seen, like, my view on the world is different, and I think the future is in good hands. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, I think so largely. I think there's still a lot of work to be done.
Mm,
But in doing protests, there's there are um, direct actions which I see a lot of youth doing. Um, like for example, especially in Europe, when these brave people, um, sort of invaded a factory that was producing the military drones that were being used by Israel to massacre Palestinians.
mm,
And they went in, they cut a hole through the roof of the factory. They jumped in, they smashed the drones to pieces, they graffitied everything, destroyed machinery, things like that. Um, that is a direct action. Years ago, there was a direct action here in Long Beach where that was called Block the Boat, where people
mm,
went and they formed a picket line, hundreds of people at the port, and they blocked access to where a Zim ship was being unloaded. Zim is the one of the largest shippers in the world. It's an Israeli company, and it is the company that transports most uh, armament from the U.S. to Israel to be used in the continuing genocide. So that action was successful. That was a direct action. Then there are actions that are not quite like that, that don't require as much strategic planning, and that don't involve putting oneself at risk. And those are informative actions, informative protests. So what we do in the banner drops is informative. uh, the media is doing a great job at keeping in Gaza out of sight, out of mind.
mm-hmm,
Um, and we are making sure that it is kept in your face. We're out there with our banners and our flags telling people, hey, don't forget, people are still being massacred in Gaza and in the West Bank. It's not like, oh yeah, first we had um, you know the bad people of Hamas invading Israel, and then Israel counterattacked, and now we have the bad Iranians over here. It's not
mm,
it's not a linear thing like that. Uh, these things have all been going for decades. And it's up to us to participate in these informative protests to keep people aware, or at least to make them think a little bit, and to, if they see a banner, why do these people have a banner that says XYZ? Maybe I'll
mm,
Google it.
mm-hmm.
I mean, I see people all the time uh, at the protests, at these banner drops, pull out their phone and take pictures. And especially on the rush hour banner drop that we do, where frequently traffic like stops to, it's like a dead stop. I see people like point up, take a picture, and then I see them with their phone doing something. What are they doing?
It could be
Are they
texting someone.
sharing
Don't
it?
text and drive, people.
Yeah, but are
Yeah.
they sharing what these pictures on social media, or are they actually like checking out what does Nakba mean? Uh,
Mm.
or things like that. Or is there still a genocide happening in Gaza or whatever? Um, but um, kids are, I mean, I used to get upset, especially, because I have kids, and goddamn kids are always on their phone. What are they doing? Well, hey, now I'm like a goddamn kid with always on the phone. But you know what? I don't I don't use my computer much anymore. We now have this computing power that is at our fingertips, and it allows us to do all sorts of things. Some of it
Mm.
is, probably not so productive, like playing video games, but a lot of it is uh, doom scrolling, through Instagram or whatnot. But a lot of it is actually like, hey, what's going on in the world? I wake
Yeah.
up and I get all my news. I mean, I used to work for the LA Times, and I used to pack papers, pack newspapers, and we would distribute this like inch and a half to 2 inch thick packet every Sunday to people's homes. Now we get it, on a little cell phone, and that's
And
the
we could pick
news.
which journalists we follow that aren't tied to
Right.
one
Yeah,
like
because you
source.
don't have to belong to a major network. Now we're seeing, a genocide occurring at our fingertips. And we're becoming aware. And by we, mostly the youth,
Hmm.
So I still have a library, with all sorts of books, but I don't reach to it very often because it's a lot easier to do a search, on the internet and find exactly the quote that I need for something that I'm writing.
Oh,
But
like in that regard, yeah, I get what you mean.
yeah,
Yeah.
but uh, so I think kids are actually more informed these days
Mhm.
than many of us boomers were, even when even when bookstores were selling shitloads of books, and when homes would typically get the newspaper delivered every day. So uh, and now we have a choice. We don't just have to subscribe to the LA Times or the Long Beach Press Telegram or whatnot. Now we have access to the international press, which often is a little better at coverage.
Mm.
Uh, I don't have to know French to open up a French newspaper and read it.
Mhm.
Uh,
Translate it
I can
with ease.
translate it. I mean, it's just fantastic. The world is open for us, and the ones who don't um, participate in this wide
World.
world are people who don't want to, who have their blinders on and are comfortable in our own little coffins.
Yeah,
I'm not one of those.
ignorance nowadays is literally a choice.
It is.
Like
Yeah.
there's no excuse not to find out the truth, and the truth explains everything.
Yeah.
I think that's why these guilty war criminals are panicking on the
Yeah.
all sides of the world.
Yeah.
Wow. So, if I may backtrack a bit, you said you started getting vocal in fall October 2023, as I did
Yeah.
too. Um, and you help organize one of the many banner drops here in SoCal that I'm very happy to highlight and promote and help when I can. Um, what was when was your first protest or activism, public display of solidarity, and what led up to Long Beach banner drop?
Well, um, so almost immediately we many of us started to participate in various protests. Many of them completely unorganized, but I'd call up a friend and, hey, what's going on? I don't know. I heard that there's something happening in front of the federal building in Long Beach, and or in front of City Hall in Long Beach, and we'd go. We didn't know what was going on, but we knew something was happening, but not exactly what. You know, I
Okay.
I would take a big sheet of cardboard, an old moving box, and some big fat markers, and we'd go and sort of make signs on the fly, and do that sort of thing. But in addition to that, uh, a group of us started to participate in these meetings at City Hall in Long Beach, asking the city to pass a ceasefire resolution. Long Beach was one of the first cities to pass actually, I think Long Beach was the first major city to pass a ceasefire resolution. Uh, and It wasn't quite what we had hoped. We wrote up a resolution. We, meaning the group that, the larger group that was organizing this. But when the city finally got a hold of it and said, "Okay, fine, we'll give you your fucking resolution," they rewrote it, and they wrote it. They turned it on its head.
Oh.
Um, the resolution was supposed to be a genuine, let's ask, as a city, we don't have federal powers, but as a city we can urge our elected representatives who do have voting power in Washington, D.C. And so the idea was, okay, let's pass this resolution that will force the two congressional representatives that cover our area to to go to Washington D.C. and pass a ceasefire resolution, in Congress, um, or to pressure, their buddy Biden and Kamala Harris to do that. And instead, City Council rewrote the resolution that basically, turned it on its head, and the resolution condemned the resistance, and it also justified the genocide by calling by saying that Israel has a right to self defense. But we urge Congress to do a ceasefire. So it was sort of like the ceasefire part became sort of an afterthought. uh,
Hmm.
and so that really, ticked a lot of us off, and we needed an outlet because all this time we had been going to city council. Some of the meetings were very rowdy, very loud. The city council had to interrupt their proceedings many times, but uh, so then, along came OC banner drops. That's where we started with the banner drops. A friend of a friend connected me with someone from Irvine who wanted assistance in how to hang banners, and so I went down a few Sundays early in the morning, and started kind of helping him out to first how to the technical aspects of hanging a banner. Then we started talking about uh, flyers, and how to make flyers, how to make sure people could get to where we were. And so I started helping out with the design of that, and then soon there was just too many of us in Orange County, and then then I said, okay, well, I live in Long Beach. There's no reason for me to keep driving all the way down to Irvine to do this. And February, mid-February, I think it was the second Sunday in February, we
Of
we
last
held.
year?
No, 2024.
2024. Gotcha.
Yeah. So the first one in Orange County, I believe, was middle of December. Uh,
Hmm.
then the first one in Long Beach was middle of February of 2024, and then and then uh, a lot of interesting things happened. People would stop on the freeway, and get off the freeway and come up to us and say, "Hey, I saw you guys. Can I help you guys?" And then after a couple of times, "Hey, uh, I want to start out. I want to start a banner drop. I have a lot of friends who live in Whittier or who live in Pasadena or downtown LA or whatnot." And so that sort of generated a few other banner drops. So, as a consequence, we had the Whittier banner drop started with some flags and banners that we loaned to them. Um, then the downtown LA banner drop, and a few others. I think the last one, actually the latest one is Fullerton. But I mean, there some have been successful. Others have sort of petered out after a couple of times. But we now have two banner drops in Long Beach that have been going on for a long time, plus the Whittier banner drop that's been going on for a while, and the downtown LA banner drop. So uh, but it's not just the banner drops. People call us, "Hey, we're having an event um, at." Any place basically from Santa Ana to Bakersfield.
Mm.
Yeah, we're having a big picnic. Can you guys come, or can you guys send a speaker? To talk about Palestine. At whatever event, and so we've been sort of doing that. Back during the student protests, we were even providing PPE to the encampments. That didn't go very well. Usually, by the time we found out, most of the stuff had been uh, basically stolen by the cops or destroyed by the cops. But you know, and we still participate I mean, in addition to the our two banner drops, we have two events here in Long Beach that we do on a regular basis. Um, uh, First Fridays, which are held the first Friday. It's a tabling event that's held the first Friday of every month in the Bixby Knolls area of Long Beach. And then we have the fourth Fridays of every month that are held in the fourth district in sort of east of downtown Long Beach. Um, so those are all tabling events. We pass out flyers. We talk to people. We promote various other events. So there's always something going on, and we've provided an outlet that is, in many ways, a very safe outlet for people who uh, 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 can't go to the big protests because
Mm.
of a number of reasons. Senior citizens. People with disabilities, people who are afraid to go elsewhere because of any number of situations.
Mm.
Uh, so I think we've been very successful at what we do, and I think it's pretty much the same thing with OC banner drops and some of the other banner drops as well.
It's such a good, consistent way to keep protesting, keep it in people's minds.
Yeah,
And I have, I do as many as I can. And I see a lot of solidarity, like a lot by
yeah,
the hundreds.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I always feel good doing these because, one, I'm doing my part, First Amendment, and doing what I can to speak on injustice. I think that's very important spiritually and all world knowingly. But it's rejuvenating for me because I'm seeing the odds of who's in the know, who cares, and it's by the hundreds. Where the people who are in opposition, who are anti us saying it's wrong to kill kids and us saying people deserve freedom, the people against that who give us thumbs down or middle fingers. That's a small percentage,
Yeah,
like
it
under
is.
the tens even, and I'm happy to see that reality. However, sometimes there are some negative people who do get in our face, but it's rare. And what have you seen with that solidarity and negativity? And has anyone gotten too far?
Well, it ebbs and flows, but uh, you know, when we first started out in Long Beach, and in Orange County, I would say the same thing, and anywhere else, people didn't know what to make of us. But we keep our banner drops consistent in the same
Mm,
place as much as possible because it allows us to see the the change in reaction that we get from the public that is down on
mm,
the freeway. Uh, it also allows us to see what works and what doesn't work. If we put out a message that is maybe not worded quite in quite a good way, it doesn't generate a response. Some messages create a big response, and so
mm,
it's a learning experience for us. But in general, I would say that the positives have always exceeded the negatives. When when I did one of my last banner drops in Orange County, I spent the whole 2 hours um, doing a traffic count. Granted, it's unscientific and it only covers that period of time, but I went to I stood over each lane of traffic, and for 5 minutes I counted the number of cars that went by. Then I counted for the next 5 minutes, and I had a stopwatch. Well, not a stopwatch really, but my phone. Then I counted how many positive responses there were. And by positive, I meant if I saw the person honking or waving or giving us a thumbs up or a
mm,
peace sign, uh, or a flag waving out the window, or even the sunroof, as we saw in many cases, I counted each one of those as a positive. Then I counted the middle fingers, the thumbs down, um, the scowls on the faces,
mm.
or people like leaning out the window screaming "F you," or whatever. Of course, they counted negative. So, so in what's curious is that in Orange County and in Long Beach, initially the percentages were exactly the same. It was uh, out of every um, out of every negative reaction, there were 15 positive reactions.
Oh
Uh, and
wow,
that was very consistent between OC and Long Beach. Uh,
wow.
and it was very consistent also with the reactions that we got when we opened the second banner drop here in Long Beach. Uh,
Mm,
but as time went by, that proportion has increased. The last time, and I went like for like a year and a half without doing a traffic count. I did one recently, and it for every negative there were 20 positives, and so that tells me that the positives are increasing, and and what's more important is that okay, so these are unscientific surveys. But if you look at the polls that national polls that have been published, uh, the change is even more marked. Uh, uh, the the equation has flipped. Uh, 3 years ago, Israel was here. Support for Israel was here. Support for Palestine was here.
mm.
Now it's like this.
Mm.
Now most people have a positive have positive support for Palestine. Give me just 1 second because I just noticed that my phone is running out of
It's
battery.
all right.
So
I'm gonna pause then.
okay.
And we're back. Uh, we're talking about the banner drops, the
Yeah, so we were
positives
talking
and
about
negatives.
how public perception has
Hmm.
changed, and
Yes.
I know that there's a lot of factors involved in this change. You know, we are a tiny percentage of it. The banner drops is,
Mm.
but hey, you mentioned before that you were participating in the banner drops to do your part. Well, if all of us did our part, that percentage might even change um, more.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
even the thing is, even people who are driving along and don't provide a reaction, we have that doesn't mean that our action doesn't have an impact.
Hmm.
Sometimes we're dropping little seeds into their brain, and at some
Or
point,
watering it. I feel that all their seeds are
yeah,
there. They just haven't
exactly,
watered it
watering the
enough.
seeds. Yeah, the seed is there, we're watering it. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
good
because people
analogy.
know
So
what's right from wrong.
yeah.
I believe.
So um so I think and the other thing is, uh you know every banner drop has a social media account, and
Hmm.
it's great to see how those social media accounts have grown, how we went from being just 40 or 50 people on the account to now being up in the thousands. Things grow exponentially. You you plant a little seed and you water it, and it's not just a little beanstalk that goes up to heaven. It's a tree that just sort of branches out, and then begins to drop more seeds. So it's a good thing. I'm very positive about the work that we've done. People just like look at me and say, well, so what? You do this every weekend, and what comes out of it? But the proof is in how um, public perception has changed, and we're
Hmm.
just one small cog in that wheel. But you know,
Man, you were answering my next question, which was why are banner drops so important? So I'd like to expand on that. Why is speaking out and going the extra mile so important?
well, I think the first thing is we have to, and I alluded to this at kind of at the beginning.
Mm.
We have to keep this in people's minds, um, and just because mass media is being silent on the genocide doesn't mean that it's not happening. Just because Meta has silenced thousands of accounts on Instagram and Facebook,
Mm.
accounts that would publish all sorts of interesting stuff. Uh, they've been censored out of existence. But again, that doesn't mean that that out of sight, out of mind doesn't mean that it's not happening.
Mm.
And so our job is to kind of keep it up there, through people seeing us on the overpasses, and through our social media accounts. And the other thing is that as we get called to, I mean, people, like, at least here in Long Beach, and I think Orange County as well, people take notice. uh, I had a guy come up to me on our Thursday banner drop. Somebody who I had not met before, well dressed older gentleman, comes up to me and he says, "Hey, I've seen what you guys are doing. I haven't had a chance to speak with you guys, but I'm a teacher, and and the kids at my school are having a walkout, and I think it would be great if you guys could help them out in some manner. And I have a my personal philosophy is to trust everyone until they give you a reason not to trust them.
That's very
And
kind
I
and wise.
and so I told the guy, I said, hey, um, would you like a banner and some flags? And he said, oh, that would be fantastic. And I said, well, what is your walkout about? And he said, well, it's mostly about anti-ice. And so I said, okay, well, here's a couple of banners, um, and one of them was strictly about immigration, and it said education, not deportation. The other one uh, kind of linked um, what is happening on our southern border here and what happens in Palestine with the walls. And it said, and it's basically a banner that portrays the chant uh, from Palestine to Mexico, all the walls have got to go.
Yeah, I like
And
that one.
so
I've
it
heard
had
that.
the Palestinian flag on one end and the Mexican flag on the other end, sort of standing in for, immigration. And uh, so this teacher took the banners, brought them back the next day. He was really excited with a message from the students that they were very appreciative. He sent some pictures, and I mean, it was just fantastic to see all these kids out there, well organized. These are high school kids. I think most people tend to write off high school kids. They're stupid. They're just
Mm,
interested in video games or whatever it is. They're functional illiterates, and all this sort of stuff that I hear. But man, looking at these kids, I go, man, there's hope in this world.
mm.
They had speeches afterwards, and they were very articulate and heartfelt. So, and they they understood the link between what's happening in Palestine and what's happening here.
Why is Palestinian liberation so important for people here in the USA?
um to me, uh physically and metaphorically, what is happening in Palestine is exactly what is going to be happening in the world. And I don't mean just the Middle East, I mean everywhere, into our backyard. uh for many years, people have said, well, Palestine is a testing ground for new weapons. The
Mm.
US is creating a weapon, or Israel is creating their own weapon. They test it out first on Palestinians. Uh, so many of these are like, more technological, like drone warfare.
Mm.
And some are bombs that basically fall and vaporize everything within the sphere of reach. uh, um, there are uh, I mean, all sorts of things that are happening in Palestine that are that that we're starting to see everywhere, including, like, for example, downtown Los Angeles during the anti-ICE protests, when the National Guard came out, and so we had ICE, we had Border Patrol, we had National Guard, and LAPD, and even the sheriffs involved in squashing the protests. Uh, the methodology that they've used to squash the the protest encampments at the universities, or how they have brought uh, the worst of the worst, the goons that the Zionist goons that came in and invaded the encampments. That is so reminiscent of what had has been happening in Palestine with the so-called settlers. You know how these guys go in, they're totally they're almost 100% male, young, testosterone driven, and low IQ, um, whose only intent is to go in there at whatever consequence and to start beating people up. I mean, that's exactly what they do to the villagers in Palestine, and that's exactly what they were doing in the encampments. Things like you know the protests against the sale of Gaza property that they were holding in various places in downtown LA, um, that we protested so vehemently like a year and a half ago. They were, the same thing. It was they were training how to go in there and effectively uh, um, instigate violence uh, against the protesters, and then that would give the police the pretext to come in and beat some heads. That's
Mm.
that's exactly what happens in these villages. The um, the settlers come in, beat up a bunch of Palestinians, and then that gives the pretext to the IDF or IOF to come in and then arrest the Palestinians that just got their heads bashed in by the settlers. And so we saw the same thing happening here. Um, just recently, uh, two of our friends were exonerated. Um, from basically instigating violence or failure to disperse in the protests that happened in UC Irvine. Um, they were held in limbo for many months with these charges hanging over their head, and they were finally exonerated. But these are people who are basically um, prevented from participating in protests while their trial is being heard, and perhaps even after. So uh, everything from tactics to weapons uh, is being tried in one place, and then it comes home. The what essentially the raising of Gaza and turning it into a pile of rubble is exactly the same thing that we are now seeing happening in southern Lebanon. Even Apple Maps has erased the names of the villages from their maps because it's basically erasure of civilization. And then we see that with the rhetoric that our administration is using in its attack on Israel. They are quite literally saying destroying civilization. So everything happens for a reason, and their reason for I mean, for what they did in Gaza is many of us see it as sort of a trial for what they want to do elsewhere. I mean, look at the protests that continue to happen in the UK and in Germany. Same
Mhm.
thing. You see, I mean, um, probably on a weekly basis, I see British cops arresting people simply because they are saying that they support Palestine. You know,
Mhm.
um, that is now considered a criminal offense here as well. With um, bipartisan approval of legislation that makes it that conflates um, um, anti-Zionism uh, with anti-Semitism.
Uh it's annoying, which is crazy because the Palestinians are Semitic people too. So
Yeah, exactly.
it's like
They are
it's
precisely Semitic. Yeah,
it's
and
like,
if
oh
anything, they are more Semitic than the Israelis. The Israelis,
yeah, barely Semitic.
they speak a Semitic language simply because they adopted a language that was basically recreated, versus Arabic and other languages that from that region that have been spoken nonstop, for a millennia.
Yeah, and isn't bombing Jewish synagogues in Iran pretty anti-Semitic then?
You think?
You know? It's like it's a joke, man, with how they trying to just force the narrative to be their narrative to be law, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
And it just paints them even worse. These past 2 years have just shown the truth of what we've been speaking all along.
yeah,
So I just wish more US citizens would care, because it's becoming more and more blatant that it's affecting us as a nation and as the people here.
yeah,
We're like in debt by the trillions.
yeah.
And I'm
Um,
probably wrong, and it's more, you know?
yeah.
Like, what more can we do, or are we doing enough? And how far along do you think we'll see actual change?
I don't think we're doing enough, but
Mm,
I think it's a slow, steady progress. I think that, and I've seen this all over the place where, even people who are Republican or adherents of the Republican Party are now uh, carrying a little whistle, 3D printed
mm.
whistle like this one, and I'm like really shocked. I go, hey, you're a Republican. What are you doing with that? And they said, well, but I'm anti-ICE, so it's a little sort of crack in the in their sphere. I might be pro-Republican, but I am, anti whatever ICE is doing. And that is a little sort of crack in the shell that allows us to kind of interject and say, hey, but what is happening there is the same thing as what is happening elsewhere. And,
Mhm.
I think, we're making some headway. There are people who uh, I'm connected to that were once, basically MAGAs, and then suddenly they become uh, anti-Trump Republicans, and then suddenly,
I like those people. I have some
yes,
that I know of that too.
and then some of them are even becoming no party preference. So that's, to me, that's encouraging. But as I said before, the most encouraging thing is what is happening with the kids, because you know um, I I'm an older guy, and I may not see change happen in my lifetime, but it gives me tremendous encouragement to know that the kids are all right. But yeah, so to answer your question, I think we're not
Hmm.
doing enough. Uh, but I think we're just so accustomed to saying, "Oh yeah, but I really, want to buy a new car, or I want to buy myself a new computer, or I want to go on vacation to, wherever." And I think, yeah, but while the genocide is happening, it's like these are real people. I mean, I have this vivid memory that has never left my mind from a couple of years ago, where this young girl, in Palestinian girl, got her jaw
Oh, I
blown
know the
off.
one. I know
You
the
remember
one.
that one?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Oh
mean,
no.
every so often, it just like that image just pops into my head, and it's horrifying. And I think, um, I now have a granddaughter, and I think, holy shit, if that were to happen to my granddaughter, Or if that were to happen to one of my adult children, what would I do? If that were to happen to one of my neighbors, what would I do? I hate to think of what I would do, but because it's probably nothing sane, but it there's a lot of people who just saw that and just sort of scrolled by, and it didn't affect them. I don't know what I
I
can do with
can't
that.
believe that.
Yeah.
That's oh. One of the ones I remember is the photograph of the a little girl holding a oxygen mask for her sibling
Hmm.
and to breathe, and the kid was asleep, but while she was holding it, she died.
Yeah. 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 It's
And this is
it's
all with our government's complicity, our taxes,
yeah.
our
Yeah.
funds to another government that's doing this to people, civilians, openly targeting them.
Yeah.
And that government is training ICE. And it's like
Hmm.
this vicious
Yeah.
cycle that will
And
only,
then
like you
ICE
said, get
comes.
worse.
Yeah, and comes, and they do that with impunity here, because what happened to the people who shot Good? You know,
Mm
what happened to the guys that shot Preddy?
hmm. Mm hmm.
And
I've
the
heard,
half a dozen other people
mm,
who.
I've heard people who haven't even seen the footage
Yeah,
and believe that they were out of line and being violent and had to be put down. But when you actually see the footage, it's
yeah,
nothing of the case.
no, yeah.
In fact,
Last
Pretty was
night.
doing his
Yeah,
First and Second Amendment rights. He had a weapon on him as self
no, he
defense,
didn't
like all
hold it.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, he had it with him, but he was
yeah.
holding a camera.
Yeah, yeah, he was holding a camera and he was helping a lady that got pushed down
Yeah,
by
he
ICE.
had no
So
weapon actively
yeah,
on him, pointing at anybody. He
yeah,
took him out.
and then the rhetoric that gets used by the government to justify what they did, in light of
Mm.
I mean, in spite of what our eyes tell us, they tell us an entirely different story. If Joseph Goebbels was still around, he would be so proud of our media, you know, um,
Mm.
because that is precisely what the minister of propaganda was doing in Nazi Germany, and that is what we're doing here, even without a ministry of propaganda, you know, and our media
It's
is
probably a different
complicit.
name here, you know? It's probably
Yeah,
like maybe Hollywood, Fox News,
well, it
CNN,
is,
it's
and
got a
the
couple names.
Federal Communications Commission, whatnot. Yeah.
Mm.
Hey, listen,
But yeah, we gotta
I
wrap it up.
have to get
Anything?
going.
Yeah, I
Um,
did too. But before you go, anything else
yeah,
you want to say, my brother? I have, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is an amazing human being. Um, you can come back anytime, talk about anything. But yeah, you help with Long Beach banner drop, and
yeah,
there's so many banner drops. I have the links in the description below. People need to
excellent.
check out. And they're usually always there too. But yeah, check them out for informations if you're in the area or want to be or can be. Show up, turn up, and help out. That'd be great. And I would like to give the floor to you, brother, if there's anything you would like to say as an ender, and we'll call it a night. Whatever you
Um,
want to say to the people or for them to know.
I I don't want to call it an ender because because if I'm going to be invited back, and I am going to take you up on that, but to talk
Yeah, of
about
course,
different things,
brother.
because the thing is, it isn't just about Palestine, or it isn't just about um, ICE, or about the war on Iran. This is a whole system that is designed to basically um, destroy the world as we know it for the profit of people. They don't care what is happening, what will happen in 20 years, because they're not going to be around. You know, they're interested for in simply in immediate profit. But so there's things about the environment. I'm a lifelong environmentalist, and there are things that I get to see and hear and do that are horrendous. And we continue to do it in spite of all the evidence. And so, that might be a different story. Maybe we need to go a little bit more in depth on Iran, which we didn't. We just barely touched the surface on. That's another big issue. Or U.S. politics. We talked about the involvement of APAC. Now there are some elected officials who are saying, well, yeah, I took APAC money, but I'm not going to take it anymore. Well, now it's too late because you've got blood on your hands and it's not going to wear off. It's not going to wash off. It's with you forever. And we need to work on collective memory and reminding these people that of what they did. The kids that they killed with the funding of their weapons. But if you want to come by and talk to any of us at the Long Beach Banner Drop, we are on the California Avenue Bridge over the 405 freeway. It's technically the city of Signal Hill, a small city that is completely surrounded by Long Beach. Um, and but Come by Sundays from noon until 2 p.m. every Sunday, rain or shine. We also have a smaller banner drop. This one is in Long Beach proper. It's called the Rush Hour Banner Drop, and it is on the Wardlow Avenue Bridge over the 710 freeway. And it is every Thursday morning from 6:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. There's only a few of us on that one. It's easy to talk to any of us. Um, we will be holding a special banner drop on Friday, the May 1st. So the rush hour banner drop will not happen on April 31st. It will instead happen on Friday, May 1st. There's going to be a lot of actions happening on May 1st everywhere. So, uh, talk to anybody that you see holding a flag or a banner, and if you want to know more about anything. And more than likely, I'll be at some of these protests or other of our various members. So come by, talk to us. Make community with us, and we're a big happy family in the struggle.
Hey, amen. Thank you so much for being on here, Carlos, bro. I appreciate this. I appreciate I get the chance to talk to you guys because we're so
Yeah,
brief and busy sometimes. It's really
yeah.
nice to sit down, especially you're on the far side. I'm gonna come by your Long Beach banner drops real soon,
All right.
and I'm trying to do a
Looking forward to
special.
seeing you.
Yeah, man, I'm
Yeah,
trying to do a special collage of all of them and do like a
very
fun
good.
little post to promote everybody to get more people involved and inspired.
Very
But
good.
yeah, we can do this anytime. It took a while to organize, but hey, that's life. But I'm glad,
Yeah,
very glad
yeah.
we got to do this. Ladies and gentlemen, you watching this, please check out the descriptions below and all the links of where you can find for more information of Long Beach Banner Drop, OC Banner Drop, Whittier Banner Drop, DTLA Banner Drop, and any other banner drop we may do. I also have other links for Palestinian Youth Movement and Jewish Voices for Peace. Code Pink is also legit, so do your homework, look around, and speak up. And whether you do or not anytime soon or later, definitely do your research of what's going on because everything's out in the open and it's ugly. You knowing could just save a lot of lives. Hey, free pal, I'm put keep that up. Wow, free Sarasan, yeah. So you guys screen captured that. That's what's up. Like and subscribe. Follow me for more. Follow me on the socials. I'm always trying to speak out, especially on Instagram. My stories, I try and update them with whatever's going on past time. But yeah, there's so much information out there. There's no excuse to be ignorant at this time and age, and it's costing lives. It's hurting United States of America. So do what you can. I appreciate you being here. Love you having you, Carlos. Thank you so much.
Thank
I'll
you for
see y'all
having me.
next. It's
All
been a
right.
blessing. So
Take
thank you
care.
so much, everyone. God bless. Be kind to yourselves. Be kind to others. It's free Palestine all the time until Palestine is free. And I'll see you next time.